Insert the usual shilling, like, comment, subscribe rate. Villains. Now, villains are a nice thing. There's no good story without a villain. Oh boy, there's no good story without a villain. They make the thing go around. They make the whole story move, the whole plot advance. Everything is nice. And villains come in all types, shades, and motivations. And hear me out about this. There are some great villains out there to defeat. Sauron, the Lich King, and the list can go on. It's amazing, the possibility of villains you can have in any form of media. But there's one villain that I think is above all, one that is hated by everyone, including the people that like him. And there's none other than Erebus. Now, Erebus is, in my opinion, the main villain of 40k. Technically, it would be Erda because of it's her fault, everything is happening, but we'll get to her at some point. Erebus is the main villain. Everything bad that happens throughout the Horus Heresy is more or less his fault. And how can't you love a man like that? Erebus is created as a perfect villain, as a perfect foil. Everything that happens is because of his ambition. Because his ambition is what puts him through everything. It's his motivation. It's what makes him go further than anybody has ever gone before. Now, don't get me wrong. The Horus Heresy and 40k itself have a great array of villains. Necrons, Tyranids, Dark Eldars, Chaos, the main villain of the 40k universe and the Horus Heresy series. Then you have Horus, Fulgrim, Angron. Great characters and great factions created to be evil, to be a threat in front of humanity. And then you have Erebus, a member of said race of humanity, who's responsible for its biggest downfall. No other faction in 40k has ever harmed the Imperium as much as Erebus did. And that makes him a loathed character. Now, this is also because Erebus is responsible for kind of pushing his Primarch to fall into chaos, being responsible for Horus turning, and killing Argil Thaw and not finishing his duel with Karn. But you see, those are nice things. Those are things that really make Erebus a proper villain. He does all these despicable things, and you want to see him get his comeuppance. You really want to see him pay for what he did. And then, you don't. You simply don't. You read the whole Horus Heresy expecting something bad to happen to him, but he's always on top. He always wins in one way or another. And now, taking into consideration the fact that he killed Loken, yeah, I'm still upset about that. We can pretty much assume that Erebus is the most hated character out there. Now, he had one good quality, and that one good quality was killing Erda. But even that's kind of blown away thanks to the fact that he killed Loken. And then tell me this character isn't meant to be hated. Erebus is the perfect character. He is the perfect villain out there. He's the villain that everyone should strive to create. A villain so hated that tomorrow Games Workshop can write a book about how he gets cut down slowly by the ghost of Christmas past. And even Erebus fans will be like, yeah, that's cool. And you have to understand, this is pretty much in the same vein of King Joffrey. Nobody liked King Joffrey. He was a perfect character made to be hated. So is Erebus. Though the difference is stark between the two. Because you see, King Joffrey gets his comeuppance at some point. Erebus doesn't. And that's the greatest thing about him. Villains usually lose when it comes to their story. Arthas dies and then gets butchered by Steve Donser and his undead female dog, story-wise, of course. Sauron again loses thanks to two brave hobbits. But Erebus doesn't lose. In fact, I would dare to say that Erebus wins. Of course, in the End of the Death, Volume 3, we learned that Erebus kinda hoped Horus to win, but he kinda did his Primarch's bidding by betting, on the right horse, Abaddon. And that's very interesting. That's amazingly interesting, in my opinion, because everybody hates Erebus. When you take the line, everybody hates Erebus, and everybody wants to see something bad happen to Erebus. Hear me out. Abaddon doesn't much like him. He wanted to get rid of him. What's it again? Fulgrim, first time he met Erebus during the book Fulgrim, before Ishvan III, he hated Erebus the moment he saw him. So did Alpharius. Not even Erebus' own Primarch, Lorgar, likes him. Not to mention how Karn has, well, some big hatred for him. And you start to understand that this character, who's, I would say, as hated or even more so than Joffrey from Game of Thrones, is a perfect villain. And you see, usually, as I said, villains lose. He doesn't. He sees the Imperium get changed by the words of his Primarch. He sees the Imperium fall into its lowest state possible, and it's all his fault. Technically all his fault. It's also Erda's fault, but nobody likes her. She's just a bad character. The difference between Erda and Erebus, both architects of the fall of the Imperium, is that Erebus is so well written and so well hated that the ESG included Erda can never match him. She's not a character that's written as well. Her story, while stupidly important and a big part of why the Imperium falls, isn't as great as Erebus. Erebus manages to make everybody hate him by his simple presence. He walks into a room of 20 Primarchs and everyone hates him. Now this is me just joking around. But still, that's the difference. Erebus can be a well-written character who is made to be hated. And Erda's not a good, well-written character. At the end of the day, Erda can never compare to Erebus. Because Erebus is the perfect villain. He is the villain created to be hated. And his motivations are simple, are so simple. He's ambitious. He wants the powers that the Chaos Gods have to be granted upon him, which technically also makes him pure evil. And that just adds another layer to Erebus. Erebus is like an onion. The more you peel off, the more layers there are, and all of them stink. That's the truth about it. All of the layers stink, and Erebus is a villain. He is evil to the core. But that makes him the perfect villain. Sure, Huron Blackheart might destroy the Imperium someday. Abaddon the Despoiler might just be 40k's Archon. But no one will manage to become as hated as Erebus. Hell, Erda was close to, but Erebus killed her and everybody liked Erebus then. And then Erebus killed Gabriel Loken, and then everybody hated Erebus. But speaking about this, even the Erebus fans hate him while loving him. Everybody hates him, and that just makes him perfect. There's no better villain in 40k than Erebus. The man won. He won. The Imperium is in shambles. He got the power of the Dark Gods. He did everything. He reached his goal. He even betted on the right horse, that being Abaddon. There's nothing to say to it. Erebus is perfect. And everybody loves to hate Erebus. There's always reasons to hate Erebus. And it's perfect. A character that's meant to be hated, meant to be evil, meant to be a villain. And he always does it properly. Erebus is a well-written character because he does his job properly. From point A to point B to the finish line, everybody loves to hate Erebus. So much so that there's an entire subreddit dedicated to hating him. That's how perfect he is as a character. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next one.